Hello, everybody. It is a Wednesday at 2 o'clock Mountain Time, and that means one thing. It is time for Mix Stories Matter. With me, I am Matthew Taylor, and what are we going to do this week? Well, we are in the middle of our series on love stories. So last week we had Love Story Part 1, which was attraction, and now we head into Love Story Part 2, which is building an, it would be emotional relationship. And then the latter one will do, it will be coming along, which will be staying power. So, how do you make that relationship stay? So, building emotional relationships. So we chatted last week, as I said, on the attraction and how what attracts us as human beings and how we can kind of do that, especially through like chat or even through the profile. But now we're hoping that we can kind of expand a little bit and start building this emotional relationship. So you may be saying to yourself, well, isn't every relationship emotional? And to a degree, they are, but I've always thought there would be a distinction on relationships between kind of transactional relationships and emotional relationships. Emotional relationships could be really like family, friendships, acquaintances, romantic, whereas that transactional one would be much more like if you're purchasing something from somebody or you're selling to somebody and it's just literally a straightforward transaction. And we have multiple ones like that during the day. And so, what is kind of the difference on them? And I kind of discovered that recently when I was in King Supers, which is a grocery store chain, which is I'm not sure if it's all the way across the country, but it certainly is in Colorado, where I am. And so I went in and I grabbed groceries, and I got a few more groceries than I was necessarily expecting. And I got up to the checker, and he was super efficient, just excellent at his job, and did a lovely job. Grabbed the stuff, got that, asked if I still found everything. Yes, I did, and started ringing everything up. Now, I'd only brought like 2 bags because I have this thing. I don't want to try and use plastic bags, so I'll just bring the recyclable ones. And but I only had 2, and I had quite a lot of groceries now. So as I went past the checker, I saw that there was a bagger at the end, another guy, and we're all masked and everything and covered up at this time. And so I kind of went up to him and I kind of looked, smiled through my mask, and said, I've got a challenge for you. I need all of these groceries to fit into these 2 bags. They're the only bags I have. I just need everything in it. What do you reckon? Do you think you could do it? And he looked at this huge pile of groceries and he goes, yeah, I can do that. And it was awesome. And off he went. And it was literally like watching a live Tetris game. And he was like, everything just went in. To hell with like meats and dairy has to go separate from vegetables. Have to go. It was like it just had to get in, and he did a masterful job of it, which was great. So the checker rang me up, and it was all done, and I paid and through, and then I came up to the bagger, and he'd got every single thing into these 2 bags, and so I just kind of smiled at him through my mask, and I was like, oh my God, that is amazing. You are a masterful bagger, and I will be sending you a bagging certificate in the mail. And he smiled and laughed back. We nodded, and we moved on. I would say that the relationship that I had with the checker was purely transactional. But the relationship I had with the bagger was an emotional relationship. And yeah, I'm telling you about it because it was fun. I think we both kind of smiled our way through it. It just was a break from the routine. But it is that kind of simple part, and that's what we're kind of thinking of trying to do: is how do we get that emotional relationship, and then we need to also be gathering information. And so that would be it. I'm always amazed. You're like, is it easy to do an emotional one? And I'm like, I think there's lots of ways we can change a transactional relationship into an emotional one, just a little bit, even tiny little bits. So, as I mentioned, I live in Denver, in northwest Denver, and the roads are really kind of narrow, and there's a lot of street parking. And so we're constantly zigging and zagging in and out to let cars pass, or then we go past, or they stop and wait, go by. And I, along with these little real world tests that I like, it's like test it out in the world and see whether it works. Um, I am always amazed how I feel when I wait for somebody and they drive right through and they make no effort to do anything to acknowledge me. And it leaves me with this kind of an empty feeling. And it is completely different when the person goes by and as they drive by, all they do is go like that, and it's a world of difference. And I'll always kind of thank people as we go through or nod, um, and and I'm like, wow, there is that little moment of kind of an emotional part. It's acknowledging human beings. It's just acknowledging another person. Is a simple please and thank you. It's as simple as it can be as well. Um, so if that's what we're kind of heading towards, trying to get that kind of emotional context or relationship, how do we do it? And so I think one of the things on that dating kind of a side of it is it's easier to do it if you get to being able to talk to somebody. It's not as easy to do it. It's still, you can do it through chat and you can do it through text, but to head towards possibly a video chat or something like that, and with the goal also to head towards possibly meeting in person, or heaven forbid, and this is so shows my age right now, a telephone call. When you get the phone and actually speak to the person on it, very unfashionable nowadays. But it's just a little easier without that, or with those kind of ways if you head towards it. And I think the Zoom thing is a great way to be able to kind of head towards where you see the other person and can be able to kind of start building these ideas, because what we're trying to do is always look for that true, authentic connection. And while we're trying to do that, we're trying to show who we are and also discover who they are. And what we're looking for is connections and compatibility, because the sooner we know that, the sooner we know if it's worth pursuing and worth carrying on, and making sure that we're kind of reasonably aligned. So how do we do it? Well, it's a little bit like we were talking with attraction, but we can now stretch our stories out a little bit. We can take them a little bit longer. We can go into a little bit greater detail and have more of a conversation than you probably have, either obviously by creating a profile or just texting and chatting back and forth. It seems to be a touch easier there. And so it brings up the question, well, what are people looking for? What are humans looking for? So I was looking for that, answering that question, but in a different context, more around about the world of leadership and what is it that people look for in order to follow somebody. But I was thinking about it when it comes to the dating world, and finding that person that you can spend time with, long time, because that's what I'm really most interested in sustainable long-term emotional relationships. Then I was like, it's the same kind of thing. Because really what you want is for you to follow somebody and you want them to follow you. And you have this mutual kind of admiration and enjoyment and fun and spirit to be together. So this is what Gallup, when they did the research about this, and this is a fun way to test it for yourselves, is to think of maybe a mentor that you've had, and just jot down what it is that person, just think of one person, showed you that made you want to follow them. What were those qualities that person showed you? And why do you feel you felt like you would listen to them and maybe use some of the things they suggested and incorporate them into your own life for success? So when you do that, list them down and then see whether they fall into the same kind of 4 categories that Gallup kind of put out. So this is what humans were looking for in order to do it. One of the first things is trust. And of course, trust is a massive part. And especially when it comes to that relationship, it's like are you trustworthy? And the person you're talking to, can you gauge whether they are trustworthy? So trust was one. The next one was compassion. And I'm amazed when I posted out what were when you were attracted to somebody, and it was on Facebook, and people were, what were the two things that made you be attracted to the person. It was amazing the number of times kindness comes up, and so compassion is huge. It's like people want to be around kind and compassionate people and trustworthy people. And especially now, and sometimes we might think that that isn't so true because we see so much where there is like anger and animosity and people are fighting each other. But we always get that news, and on TV it always drives me a bit crazy. Like shows, often it's conflict after conflict after conflict because apparently that's gets people to view. But it's not what we really, I think, want in general as humans. It's like we usually want to get along. It's like when there's a major accident or something happens, people rush to help each other. They don't rush to go, hey, look, the ship's going down. This is a good opportunity to steal that guy's Rolex. I mean, it's like, no, everybody kind of tries to help each other to survive. And I think it's in our souls and nature to do that. So that was the second one. The other one was stability. And that encompasses quite a chunk in the sense that obviously are you stable, but it's reliability, and it's also in there. It's like intelligence and interests and are you curious? But all of those elements kind of filter into that stability that people look for, and then the last one, which is huge, is hope. And I'm like, wow. That is so true. It's like we are always hoping, for what is the future. The future is going to be good, well, and not just for ourselves, but we often hope for it for others. Especially if we have children or we have parents who are aging. It's like hope for what is going to be in the future. And so those were the four things. And so now we know what a human is looking for in order for somebody, to follow, and we're looking for as well in reality. I think most of us. So it's very simple. Let's just be human and play to those strengths. So we know that that's what they want to see. The other thing is, there are things that are very difficult. You can't tell somebody to trust you. You can't tell somebody that you are compassionate. So it does lead us to this next question of, what are the stories that we need to be able to share in order to kind of not just start this emotional journey, this relationship with somebody, but then be able to continue and expand and expand. And so they kind of fall into some different categories. So the first ones I would say would be stories of ourselves. It is because we have to reveal who we are. And Grover, I know I've mentioned this in the past, the quote that says, reveal yourself or others will reveal you. And I'm like, oh, that is so true. Don't think that if we don't share who we are, that the other person is just going to leave that as a void. They will fill the rest of the details in, and nearly all the time get it completely wrong, kind of understandably. So it's really important early on that we show who we are as a person. And we know the things people look for. So if you are trustworthy, if you are, a compassionate person, I think most of us are that way. It's like we need to show those things. But as I said, you can't tell somebody that you're trustworthy. You've got to show it. And so think of little moments in your life when you exhibited trust. You were trustworthy, or you were compassionate. And there's lots of simple ways. It should never necessarily be, overt and kind of obvious that that's what you're trying to do. But they're very simple little ways of being able to do it. And remember, think of stories as those little tiny story moments. They're not long, drawn out pieces. I mean, they could be as simple as, you're wandering down the mall and somebody in front of you dropped a $20 bill. And you picked it up and tapped the guy on the shoulder and said, hey, you dropped this. And what was amazing to you is how shocked he was that you actually did that. And it's like, really? Do most people, if somebody drops it, they go, that's mine, and head off? It's like, no, of course I'm going to hand it back to him. I mean, if you had a little story like that, boom, It's there. And you're not going to force them in. It's like if it fits into the conversation or they're talking about it, you're like, oh yeah, that happened to me. Um, did you know, ride in a charity ride like the MS 150 for multiple sclerosis? I mean, if it is, then it shows not only that you are athletic and maybe you like to ride bikes. It's 150 miles over two days, so it's quite a long distance. But it also shows that you had to raise money for it and that you had more of a sense for helping others than just going on a super long bike ride and being a stud, or however you'd say it. So we have all these little kind of stories in us. It's just that we don't necessarily think of them like that. And so that would be kind of the first series of stories that you really want to make sure you start thinking about those little moments and those ideas. And you'll see them happening all the time. Another one, the next one you want to do is compassion. And as I said, a lot of them will all cross over, especially those first, trust and compassion, and will often be even combined in similar stories. But also actions that you do. One of the most compassionate things you can do is listen. Just listen to another person and give them time. Don't interrupt them immediately also, and allow them, or ask them more, be curious. Ask them, tell me a little bit more about that, those probe questions that we kind of have spoken about. So you can really kind of not only deliver who you are, but you also have to be able to gather who the person you're talking to is, so you can find that mutual ground. And then the stability stories, and then hope for the, what are your goals for the future? What are your thoughts for the future? All of those little pieces, bearing in mind that the person you're chatting to probably would love to have a relationship that goes on and long, and you both have this amazing time together. So those are kind of the stories. The second stories, or those are the kind of those first stories about showing who you are as a person, of self. The important part to think about that as well is you have to be honest with yourself. It's like, who are you? It's no good trying to kind of just make it up if you aren't a certain way. This isn't about trying to fabricate or trying to kind of manipulate other people. And so having that true feeling of what your current reality is and who you are is really important, because then you can part it. So that comes along with not just all those wonderful things about it, but also if there are vulnerabilities, or if there are, pieces of yourself that you're like, share them all. Probably over time. This is when we're talking about the emotional one, hopefully you'll have a few meetings a few times as you can start to grow those. And then the next kind of set of stories would be, on this emotional side, would be probably stories of passion and interest. It's like those ideas of what are the little tiny moments that show the things that you are most interested in. I mean, if you just love to read books, that's fantastic. But what type of books is it that you like to read? And what was your favorite book? And what was the favorite passage within that book? And why did you like that? So if you do that, and the other person's like, wow, books, I fancy that. I mean, I read enough books at school to last me my lifetime. There's a big sign. So that would be it. So it's these different ones, and to give them, a varied selection of them, it's like, and even pieces like, politics, pieces like, spirituality or religion. But then, are there sports? Are there, active activities? Is there gardening? Is there baking? What is it? Are those ones? And so any of those ones, but really the ones early on are what really makes you happy. It's like, what are you passionate about? What do you love? And make sure that you have some of those stories up your sleeve, because you really owe it to the other person to make sure that they know that that's what makes you tick, what you absolutely love. And you'll know immediately if they trigger from your story, because that's how a long-term memory works, and tumble out with a story that matches. And if it is, you're off to the races. It's like, bingo, that one is working. Where's the next one? And that last one would be tying in with that last bullet point from Gallup, hope. It's like stories of the future. It's like, what is it that you are thinking of? Where are you thinking of going? What would be your idea of retirement? Is it to buy a small place in Portugal and be there, or is it to move back to Arkansas? I mean, it's like, I don't know, but it's like, but be honest about it and be there, and don't listen to the other person and then tell them what you think they want to hear. All the time you do this, you are of course doing the other part as well, which is helping the other person share who they are. Because we're not great at doing it, and especially in that kind of time crunch when it's the first time meetings and you really want to kind of get there quickly so you can save time and realize, yes, there is a connection, maybe, or there's not. But just remember, in those conversations, it's like you can help other people be good storytellers by asking them questions, giving them time, and then prompting and probing to see what it is that really makes them happy. But you'll also see if they're just saying, yeah, I love bike riding too. And they like to wander, I like to ride around Sloan's Lake once and then go for a beer. And it's like, okay, well, that's a different type of bike riding that maybe you like. So those ones of the future are kind of great. It's like, it's more that global picture. And again, you can always tie in other pieces. Like if you are thinking about future for your children, then that shows compassion as well, that you care, and that how important they are to you. If it's your elderly parents or parent, that again, or if it's animals, all of those you can be kind of framed in these different areas. So first, it's really the story of a self. And then second, those stories of passion, of interest. And then third, those stories of the future, and again, little tiny short stories. Remember what we talked about on a successful conversation. Now, whether that is typed or not, there it is. Remember, as the conversation's going on, it is a process. For it to be a successful conversation, a process of not just giving information, but gathering information as well. And if you do that with give and take, and listening like gangbusters, you will build understanding, but you will also build that relationship. And if the content is of an emotional quality, which it nearly always would be by then, you will be building that emotional relationship. So with those in mind, have fun with it. This is the sort of thing you can try, and you don't have to kind of be in a pressured situation where you're like, oh, I've just found this perfect person online and now I need a contact. It's like, but you can play with friends, you can play with anybody. Just kind of give it a go and see whether other people are doing it around you. The other thing is pay attention out there and see when next time you walk by somebody or you drive by somebody, see if you fill in the details yourself. You look at somebody and then you build that picture about who that person is. Because if you're doing it, you know everybody else is doing it as well. So you owe it to yourself to make darn sure that the person you're communicating with will actually know who you are as a person. So I think that kind of wraps up that piece. I mean, hopefully, as that relationship goes, if you are finding compatibility and both of you are finding it, obviously it has to be both sides, it will elongate the time that you spend. And hopefully at some points you'll be spending time together or going out or meeting together. And that way, those stories get longer and things will just kind of gel and keep moving forward. So, please reach out if you have questions. You can always get hold of me at matthew@matthewtaylor.com. You can also, what can you do? You can go to my YouTube page or channel, which is Matthew Taylor Stories on YouTube. I'd love you to subscribe there. This will be posted there, and there's also other bits, as well as some of the stories from Goat Lips, Tales of a Lapsed Englishman, my book. And we also have a Facebook group called I know exactly what it is called. It is called Powerfully Fun Storytelling. I may have to rename it because for some reason I have a hard time remembering that name. Powerfully Fun Storytelling. So you can always subscribe there as well and go in, and then every now and then there'll be kind of discussions about stories and thoughts and ideas. And you can go to MatthewTaylor.com to get me as well. Thanks so much. Love Stories Part 3. We were backed up a little bit here because I do say that 'tis the month of love of February, but the next one will actually be, I think, the 2nd of March. So it's close, but it's not quite the month of love. But we will be doing the last one, which is staying power. It's like, how do we take this and what are the skills we need to think about and ideas we need to think about to be able to extend that relationship and make it a lengthy one. I was going to say lifetime, but it's like hopefully it would be, but just so it's satisfying and long for all parties. So we will look at that next week on Make Stories Matter. I'm Matthew Taylor. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you next Wednesday at 2 o'clock Mountain Time. Take care. Have a fantastic one, and make those stories matter.